Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're tackling a word that probably makes you roll your eyes a little bit, compliance. But we're going to completely reframe it. We are taking compliance from a stagnant, check-the-box administrative nightmare and turning it into a dynamic, strategic enabler for your organization. Let's dive right in.
Let's kick things off with a pretty tough question. Is your compliance program just theater? Seriously, ask yourself if your organization is just creating these massive checklists and artifacts that look fantastic on paper but do absolutely nothing to reduce your actual operational risk. Look, if security is only introduced at the very end of your projects just to check a box, you aren't actually buying security. You're just buying paperwork. You're pushing massive stacks of files around without moving the needle on safety even an inch.
So to fix this theater, our explainer today is going to break down a living compliance engine into 6 manageable steps. Beyond the checklist, cultivating compliance culture, mapping your obligations, assessing compliance risks, demonstrating your evidence, and finally, achieving disciplined trust.
Starting right off with step 1, beyond the checklist, a paradigm shift.
This shift really requires us to abandon the myth that compliance is just some one-time annual audit. Traditional compliance forces adherence through surveillance and periodic disruption. It's totally fear-driven. Modern compliance, on the other hand, is systematic. It embeds verifiable habits into your daily business processes. It's continuous, it's traceable, and it's constantly improvable. It essentially becomes the organizational muscle memory of knowing what applies, doing what's required, verifying it, and correcting it.
To actually pull off this modern state, you need a compliance management system, or CMS. Think of a CMS as a best practice management lens. It ensures your program reflects your specific strategic DNA. Because if you just try to apply generic bolt-on technical fixes, your company's culture is going to act like an immune system and completely reject them. The system absolutely has to match your operational realities.
Which leads us perfectly into step 2, cultivating compliance culture, the human element.
You know, we usually think compliance fails because of bad technology, but in reality, it almost always fails because of culture, leadership, and governance gaps. Human behavior is literally the most variable and the most decisive factor in day-to-day cybersecurity outcomes. You just can't govern cybersecurity by blindly trusting people, and you definitely can't do it by just forcing rigid rules down their throats. You have to build an environment where conforming to your security obligations is simply the path of least resistance.
In shaping that behavior, that requires real leadership commitment. We're talking about setting up truly independent compliance functions so they can speak the truth, even when it's inconvenient. It means putting away the heavy gavel of pure punishment and adopting a mindset that naturally integrates requirements into everyday business. By giving people the right tools, adequate training, and the resources they need, leadership can actively reward secure behavior across every single level of the organization.
Moving on to step 3. Mapping your obligations, understanding the landscape. Obviously, to be compliant, you actually have to know what rules apply to you, and breaking this massive headache down into 4 clear buckets makes it so much more manageable. First, you have your legal and regulatory duties, like privacy statutes. Then your contractual promises to customers and suppliers. Next are the standards and frameworks you've chosen to adopt, things like ISO or NIST. And finally, your own internal policies for stuff like access management. Categorizing this complex web creates a living process that tracks your evolving obligations, rather than relying on some static list that's going to be outdated by tomorrow morning.
That brings us to step 4, assessing compliance risks, where obligations meet operations.
This right here is the exact intersection where those abstract compliance obligations we just talked about hit the gritty reality of your operations. You have to repeatedly and systematically ask your teams, where could we fail? Why, and with what consequences? You've got to uncover the operational failures, like misconfigurations, untrained staff, or unmanaged third-party risks that could violate those legal or contractual buckets. Finding these gaps before a crisis hits is the absolute core of risk assessment.
Now, to survive in a constantly changing threat environment, we adapt, but without just improvising. We structure our assessments around a continuous feedback loop. First, plan. Define your scope and identify risks. Second, do. Implement the controls. Third, check. Monitor the performance with objective evidence. And fourth, act. Correct any nonconformities. Running this cycle guarantees that your compliance posture evolves right alongside new business priorities and emerging threats.
All right, step 5, demonstrating your evidence, moving beyond paper.
Look, having a policy is simply not enough. Compliance only actually exists when you can prove your controls operate effectively under real-world conditions. You need to think of documentation not as red tape, but as the actual brain of your operations. It's the vital operational memory that guarantees continuity when staff turn over, it enables strict accountability, and it provides crucial credibility when you're facing down audits or regulatory investigations. Without it, you have zero proof.
But here's the catch. Documentation only captures what people are willing to share. If you punish employees for speaking up, they will literally sweep risks under the rug. Shadow IT proliferates, people hide near misses, and the system fails quietly until it spectacularly fails publicly. That is exactly why safe reporting, where leadership acts on feedback and rigorously protects whistleblowers, is a non-negotiable structural control for gathering real, actionable evidence.
Which leads us to our final step, Step 6, achieving disciplined trust, the ultimate goal.
Bringing all of this together really reveals what a mature, strategic compliance program ultimately delivers. We have to completely reframe compliance from being a fear-driven constraint into this incredibly powerful concept of disciplined trust. It's trust earned by consistent behavior, verified by hard evidence, improved by continuous learning, and protected by strong governance structures. This isn't just about security anymore. This generates massive bottom-line economic value for your business.
So, as we wrap up, I want you to reflect on your own operations today. Have you truly earned your organization's trust? And if the auditors knocked on your door tomorrow morning, could you actually prove it? Is your current program providing the indisputable evidence needed to sustain this trust in an increasingly uncertain world? It's time to move beyond the checklist and build disciplined trust. Honestly, the survival of your business might just depend on it.